Welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa Caprio. Do you believe in magic? What if you were told that all you had to do was get a little creative and work a magic spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Here on Postcards to the Universe, we will share manifesting, tips, postcards, creativity, abundance, and prosperity. Here is your host, Melissa Caprio.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, creating the life you crave. It's Wednesday. How are you guys doing today? I hope everybody's doing well. It's super dark and rainy here today. I don't know, we have like a system or something. Maybe that means the weather's going to change. You know, I'm always hopeful for that, as you guys have heard me say in the past. I love it when the weather gets cooler, which is very rare down here in South Florida, but maybe that's what it is. I have a really cool show today. Her name is Joanne Fawcett, and she is an author. Her book is called Midlife Magic, but she's also going to share her knowledge on UFOs and the paranormal and all that fun stuff. So I'm excited to talk to her today, and she's going to join me in just a few minutes. A little shout out to all my regulars who listen each week. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you coming and listening and tuning into my show and coming back. It means the world to me. And if you are new to my show, I want to say welcome, and I hope that you do keep coming back. We always put the shows up on replays in the archives on Om Times Radio, and I also take the show and put it up on my podcast, which you can find on my website, postcardstotheuniverse.com. So I do hope you enjoy the show and you keep returning. I am, if you are listening to me for the first time, you guys who listen to me on a regular know this already, but it's worth repeating. I am an artist, I'm an author, I'm a photographer, and I have a book. It's titled Postcards to the Universe, Harness the Universe's Power and Manifest Your Dreams. And my book, I take people's manifesting postcards, which are like mini vision boards, I would say, and I photograph them. And when the person's postcard, what they put on their postcard, shows up in the reality, they share their story. And I have the image of their postcard next to their story in the book. And there are 30 of those in my book. And I have so many exercises and fun manifesting games in the different areas of our life that we want to attract more abundance, which is in the areas of love and money and health and career and so much more. So I hope that you check it out. You can find it on Amazon or barnesandnoble.com. And if you're interested in doing some fun games, manifesting games, yeah, definitely check out the book. And I also decided to do some live readings from the book. I started doing that probably, a month ago, maybe a little longer. And if you want to follow along, they're 5-minute videos. You can find those on TikTok and Instagram, and I also upload them on LinkedIn and YouTube. So I hope to see you over there. Send me a like if you're watching those videos. I would appreciate it. Each week, I share what I call a magical message, and it's a postcard that I get that I photograph with an affirmation, because I do affirmations all the time. But what I've been doing lately is I've been re-photographing the postcards that are in the book since I'm doing the readings. So I'm kind of putting those together. So you'll get to see some new images of those postcards from the original ones that I took from the book. And today's message is, today is a great day. It's a good day. It's a good thing to say when you wake up, right? Let's put it out there. Today is a great day, and see what happens for you. Please keep sending me manifesting postcards. How and where to send it is on my website, postcardstotheuniverse.com, or reach out, send me an email, and I will tell you how to do one and where to send it. And I love getting them in the mail. I get so excited. I also started doing a couple of workshops. I have one, it runs Thursday evenings. It's called Manifesting Through Gratitude, a Visual Journey. And it's 5 weeks, start to finish, and then we roll them over. And it's basically about using gratitude for manifesting. And the little extra that you get from the workshop, it's online, so you can do it from the comfort of your home, is that you get to use, and I'm going to show you how to use your camera phone as a tool for manifesting, the things that we already have in our life, which sometimes we take for granted. If when we learn to focus on that, so much more shows up. And I also have another one coming up in January. It's January 6th, 1 to 4 p.m. It's just one day. And this one is titled, Put Your Wishes to Work and Manifest the Life You Desire. And it's going to be about how to create a manifesting postcard. It's perfect to do in the beginning of the new year, right? What do we want to bring in 2024? I can't believe we're already in the middle of November, 2023 just blew by. I can't even believe it. So if you want to find out more about each of those workshops, I would love to see you over there. Just go to postcardstotheuniverse.com and under workshops, you'll see both workshops listed and it'll tell you more information. And if you're on Facebook, I have a group called Postcards of Love. It's public, and we just share fun, loving, interesting, inspirational stuff. It's all very light. We want to keep it light, right? We want to keep our energy high. So today, I have a really interesting guest. I'm really excited to talk to her, and she was kind enough, Joanne, was going to come on my show probably at a later time. I originally had a different lineup, and the person who was supposed to come couldn't join me. And I messaged Joanne, and I said, hey, would you be willing to come this week? And she's like, yeah, definitely. So I'm so excited. All right, let me tell you a little bit about her. Joanne Fawcett dramatically changed her life over the last 20 years, 7 marriages, including abuse, divorce, and death. The 7th husband was a former military intelligence officer, an active member of the Mormon Church for nearly 30 years. She left it behind to embrace the world of UFOs, elementals, magic, and paranormal, which speak deeply to her soul. Through her many struggles, she found her strengths, gifts, and inner power. Learning that dreams do come true, she is an international speaker on the topic of UFOs, extraterrestrials, and including the military's involvement. Her book, Midlife Magic, is the story of her journey. Her passion is to teach others about this world of wonder. And today, she is a warrior who proudly carries the title Wise Woman-Crone. I love that. And you can find out more about Joanne if you go to her website, which is dragonhillbooks.net. Welcome, Joanne. Thanks for coming today. I'm excited to talk to you.
Thanks for having me. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can hear you great.
Okay,
you sound
great.
You sound good to me. Wow. So first 7 marriages. You're like Liz Taylor.
Almost, yes.
Wow. That's so interesting. I couldn't find 7 people that I liked enough to even date. I don't even know about Mary.
Yeah.
So was it the 7th husband that got you, because he was an intelligent in the military, that got you into the UFOs?
Yes, exactly. Yeah.
All right, so I'm going to turn the mic over to you. Why don't you share a little bit about how you got into what you're doing today and talking about UFOs and extraterrestrials. I totally believe in it. Many of the people that listen to my show do. Many of my former guests believe in UFOs, so yeah, tell us about it.
Okay, well, and I can't remember, that was part of my bio, but when I was a kid, I grew up in the 50s and 60s, so we watched Martian movies that were pretty cheesy, and then I didn't think anything more about it. And I didn't even think about it until much later. I'd had some ghost experiences in my 20s at different funerals and things, and then when I met number 7, I was still a member of the Mormon Church. But after I met him and I started visiting him, and we started talking about other things and other spiritual things and stuff, I left the church. So that's a different story. But it was no big trauma there. But then, probably it wasn't right away, but years. I mean, I knew he'd been into the military. Eventually, I knew it was military intelligence. And eventually, it probably was a good 2 or 3 years, it was a few years into the relationship. And he gave me something to read and type up because he'd written this story about a space mission that he'd been on. And I'm going, what? This is real? And you've been in space, and there's aliens, and this is all real. And yeah. And it's funny because in 2004, he said, there's a And at the time, I was living in California, and he said, "Oh, there's a UFO conference in the San Francisco Bay Area. You might want to go." It's like, okay, that sounds like fun. And I went, and I was just going to go for one day. It's like, oh, I need to go back for the second day because this was all new and exciting information to me. And then by the next year, I had enough of his information at my fingertips so that I could have my own booth at that fair. And then I started getting on radio shows and speaking at conferences and things. So it lasted. Well, I was on the speaking circuit until COVID hit, basically.
Okay.
Yeah. And then I've been on a lot of podcasts, and I just did my first in-person speaking thing a couple weeks ago. So
wow.
That was fun. Yeah.
So, before we get into, I want to find out like somewhat information that you could share to us about like the UFOs and the extraterrestrials. But before we do that, let's just talk about a little bit about, I mean, being married 7 times is a lot. So why do you think that, I mean, because you talk about, and I know in your book, you went through some abuse and all this stuff. Yeah, like, what was it that you feel like that you needed to learn to go and be married 7 times? Because that's what I always ask myself when I go through stuff. I'm like, okay, what is the lesson here for me, right? We all have lessons that we have to go through. And not that many people are married that many times. So why do you think that is? Yeah, thankfully.
Well, there's a couple reasons. Again, I grew up in the 50s and 60s, so the image growing up was happy family, house, kids, white picket fence type of stuff. And so I thought that's what you just do.
Right.
My parents were separated for a short period of time when I was in, I guess you call it middle school now. We used to call it junior high. But anyway, when I was in my early teens, my parents separated for a while. But for the rest of the time, they stayed married until my father passed. And so it's interesting. So that's the image I had. And then after I joined the Mormon Church, it's all about happy family, lots of kids if you can have them. And, and that's what it is. Happy family, strong family values, and I loved that. I wanted to be, this loving wife and this mom of 1 million kids. I ended up having 1, which was fine because the universe knew best. And then again in the Mormon Church, you're not supposed to have sex before marriage. You're not supposed to live together before marriage. So if you're in your early 20s and the hormones are raging and the only way you can have sex is to get married, And he seems like a nice guy, and he's a member of the church, so he must be a good guy. He must want the same things I do, right? Because we go to the same church. So obviously we're on the same page on many levels. Well, that really was never the case.
Right. That's interesting. Well, it makes sense. If in the Mormon Church you can't live together and you can't, and you're you're following the Mormon. I don't know anything about being Mormon, but following the Mormon philosophy, then that makes sense that instead of dating, you just marry them.
Well, and there was some dating, but again, there was some dating, but again, it's like the first guy I married. It turns out he only married me because his family was, I was barely 20 when we got married. He was a little bit older. His family was pressuring him to get married. And, I was a home ec major. Like, so what better to marry somebody that's, supposedly Susie Homemaker? Well, later as we're going down there, it's like, well, I didn't really love you, and you're not thin enough. And it's like, oh, excuse me.
So I know you said is that also part of the reason, going through all those relationships, and was that part of also the reason that you decided to leave the Mormon Church because of the philosophies that were?
It's funny because and I'll say one more reason why I married so many times is because by marriage number 2, I married a non-member, but I got pregnant. I got pregnant before we got married, actually, but I didn't know that at the time. But, he died, and so then I wanted to find a dad for my daughter. Even though we were much better off in the in-between times because I kept marrying losers. So then when I met number 7, who's not a member, and he's a pagan, and we started talking about other things besides things you hear from the pulpit. Like, there's more to spirituality than what they're teaching at that church. Oh, there's some cool things to learn about that are outside the little world I know as a Mormon. So my worldview was very small, and all of a sudden my eyes are just going, oh. And this guy was very interesting, so I thought I would rather go see him at prison for a few hours, several days a week, versus sit for a
Oh, yeah, we do need to mention that because that's he went to prison. So why don't you share? Oh, is he still there? Okay, so then 2 questions. Are you still married to him?
No, we got a divorce in May.
Okay, so why did he end up going to prison?
He was convicted of masterminding a murder that happened in the San Francisco Bay Area in 1982. And while he had nothing to do with it, the kids that did it said he masterminded the whole thing and helped them dump the body. But
he's saying he's innocent. He has nothing to do with it. Okay.
Yeah. And I believe that after reading all the paperwork and also knowing of his, it's like I kind of joke, but it's like knowing that he's this elite military person with all this great training. You're not going to hire teenagers to help you kill somebody and then hide the body so badly that it floats back up. So, I mean, if you're a trained military person, you don't need teenagers to help you, and you would just do it yourself and hide the body and nobody find it. So,
Yeah. Oh, my God. You have had a fascinating. You can write a book just on all that, all your relationship. Oh, my Lord.
I mean, half of the first book is about the husband.
Yeah, that's true. This is about the husbands, right?
Yeah, the second book is all about him, but, that's not about UFOs. But, it was like interesting. He opened my eyes to a lot of things, and I've had my own UFO sightings since I've known him. But, it was just the idea of becoming more enlightened or educated about the world and the reality of things, and that there were, there were things that made you spiritual beyond sitting in church all day. So
sure. Oh yeah, sure. No, I believe that because that's me. I don't follow any segregated religion. I'm more of a spiritual person. So, okay, so he opened up your world to this. Now, did he work for that special secret sect of the government that was like clued in on the UFO sightings?
Yes.
He did.
Yes.
Okay.
And his dad was doing that, and his grandfathers also, it ran in the family. And his dad was doing this because he was in the military. So the ex grew up in the military. He grew up seeing aliens because his dad would take him to things. And so it was just. You mean aliens
that are here, that are like at sites, military sites? Wow.
Sometimes they're at bases, and sometimes over the years the government and the military have helped host they were involved with certain treaty conferences between humans and aliens that happened here on Earth. And one was in 1961, so the ex was a kid and he got to go.
Oh, wow.
And then the other one, the next one after that, because there's been several, but the next big one after that was 1971, so he was a young adult. And then he was part of the security team. So sometimes he was in the U.S. military. I mean, he has been in the U.S. military. He was Army and then Navy. And so he really doesn't talk about his involvement with that kind of stuff because he's still, his secrecy oaths, his secrecy oaths are still applied. He's also worked for international agencies or maybe somebody else's government. So those are, a lot of the things that he can talk about and has told me, and then he would write things, and then I had a nonprofit for years, so then I would sell the reports, and I would go around to the conferences and speak.
Oh, so what is so he's saying that there's real treaty, because more people are talking about stuff like this, but that there's actual been contact, and so what? I mean, you talk about it, so you're like, yeah, sure, it's like nothing. But for the rest of us, we're like, what? Well, like, why is this being still so hidden? Do they think that people just would lose their minds and they wouldn't believe it, or fear?
That's what he was always telling me, that the military felt like the general public just couldn't handle the truth, and when the church, now think about this, the church, major church leaders, or the church leaders of all the major churches know about UFOs and aliens, and have often helped the military deal with it or recover debris or whatever. It's just something, the Vatican, the Catholic Church has at least 2 observatories that I know about, and the Mormon Church leaders have had their, I'm sure they still do, have their own little military thing going, or, a branch of our military, and they were specifically tasked to help, the U.S. military with different UFO-related things.
So what is the treaty? I wouldn't be surprised that the church leaders.
The different treaties, sometimes it's, we'll give you this much technology, you let us have this many people to take off the planet.
People would freak out. People would freak out about stuff like that.
It's often related to a trade for technology and people.
Interesting.
And so nowadays, what you look at is, okay, if there's a major earthquake or a major tsunami or a major natural disaster, how many people disappeared and how many bodies did they actually find?
Oh, yeah. See, I wouldn't know. I've never read any. You know what I mean? So you're saying, okay, I see.
That's often a cover for a whole bunch of people that just got scooped up and taken away.
But did they get taken? They get taken away against their will, though. No,
yeah, exactly.
That's not good. Listen, if you volunteer for it, that's whatever. That's your right. But to be taken,
it's usually you're taken against your will, and it's not to go on vacation in space. So that's the dark side of it. There is a lot of light and not all aliens are mean and bad and nasty and want horrible things for us. There are several friendly species, and there's even one there's more than one, but there's one that I talk about a lot that works with our military, and they have since 1952.
Who is it, if you don't mind saying?
No, I don't mind. We call them the raptors. They're like the velociraptors that you see in Jurassic World. Those are real. They still look like dinosaurs, but that species has worked with us since 1952, when they met my father-in-law, or my former father-in-law, and several other military leaders at Hamilton Air Force Base in Northern California.
So that's just crazy. I mean, so how... I don't even know what to ask. Like, so how was there even a communication? I mean, like, so we imagine it as, like, how would they even communicate? Do they speak?
Tell you. Well, because that particular species can speak. If you're like a highly trained, if you're like a high-level military officer, or you're an elite level class, if you're upper echelon of them, you get that particular species, you can have an operation on your voice box, and then you can start learning how to speak human languages. So I'll tell you, this is one of my favorite stories. In August of 1952, my father-in-law and my mother-in-law, and she was just like, I guess, was she pregnant at the time? She was either just barely pregnant with the ex or about to be. I think she was just barely pregnant. But anyway, summer of 1952. So yeah, I think she must have been barely pregnant because he was born in June of the following year. Anyway, so everybody's at the officers' pool, at the Hamilton Air Force Base, and all of a sudden, 8 shiny flying saucers come towards the base in Northern California, and there's in one of Richard Dolan's books, he actually mentions this because he had pulled that piece of information out of his Freedom of Information inquiries. Anyway, but this group of 8 showed up, and, the officers all went down to the flight line, got in their jets, and my father-in-law and a couple other people come out of their hangars in U.S. military flying saucers and take off after these flying saucers. And I don't think they had a battle, because I didn't hear that as part of the report, but they eventually all come back, and eventually this one lone Raptor flying saucer comes back and lands, and out walks this 9-foot-tall reptilian looking like a dinosaur, and he said, "Hello, my name is blah, blah, blah." Prince Naga Draconis is his whole name. So he was royalty. I think his mom was empress at the time. And he was sent as an ambassador to start, because she thought it was time to start working on a friendly basis with the humans. So, and he spent like 3 days at least at the Air Force Base talking with my father-in-law and other military guys, teaching them about things, teaching them, and maybe teaching them about space, and teaching them about, well, this is what you learned maybe about the Greys or somebody else, and maybe it's not quite true. So just setting them straight and educating them. And that's, and that species has worked with us since 1952. And they're so cool. They're absolutely, I can't wait to meet them one day. But they have this, they originated on this planet. So Mother Earth is very dear to them.
That's so interesting.
And
so when you go and you talk about this, like, some people must like be like, their mouth must be on the floor. They must be like, because it sounds so fantastical. Listen, it does sound, but there have been more and more claims of people who have witnessed and seen, and now in today's world with camera phones, people are catching more of unidentified objects in the sky, things going into the ocean. I watched this whole thing about, there's a bait that some people believe, and they've seen the spaceships coming out of the ocean, that they have a base there. So, it's crazy. So you watch this stuff and it's like, you know what, I'm going to be open to any possibility, because what do I know? I only know my little life. I am like open. But before we go, because I want to find out more about this, because it's so fascinating to me, let's take our break now.
Okay.
And then we come back, we'll talk more about these UFOs and extraterrestrials. All right, guys, stay tuned, and we'll be back in just a few moments.
Conscious media for conscious minds. Om Times. Host your show on IOM FM, the radio network of Om Times Media, one of the more recognized brand names in the conscious community, and is backed by the extensive marketing reach of Om Times. Hosting a show on IOM FM immediately connects you with our extensive dedicated community.
Everyone has a story. I have a story. You have a story. We all have a story. As I see it, you have 3 choices. Allow your story to define you, use it to excuse you, or utilize it as a method to empower you. It's your life. You have the power. You choose. Rewrite your story on finduniquelyyou.com.
Imagine yourself being transported to India, to the banks of the Ganga and an ashram in Rishikesh. Visualize that you are welcome to satsang with an American sannyasi who shares the wisdom of her guru. Your visualization has manifested. Join Sattvi Bhagawati Saraswati for inspiration and transformation every Thursday at 11 a.m. Eastern on Om Times Radio.
Ascending Hearts is no ordinary dating site, but a spiritual dating site with a purpose, to link you with your soulmate. We engineer the serendipity so you can trust that you will attune with someone that has the same matching vibration as you. Ascending Hearts, the conscious dating site for the spiritually aware. Try Ascending Hearts for free, ascendinghearts.com.
Hi, I'm Melissa Caprio from Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave. Do you believe in magic? What if I told you all you had to do was get a little creative and work a dream spell to bring anything you can imagine into your life? Well, guess what? I've got the spell for you. Postcards to the Universe, a global movement for manifestation, is a casting magical tool for you to use whenever you want. How does living in passion sound to you? Join me in my movement where you get to create in the magical playground. Let's think outside the box and do some playful conjuring. By casting out our desires with a manifesting postcard, we explore our hearts and allow the alchemy of our dreams to appear. And don't forget to tune in each week here on Om Times Radio with my show, Postcards to the Universe, creating the life you crave at 4 p.m. Eastern Time. I share tips on creativity, abundance, and prosperity, and you will be introduced to the coolest guests, trailblazers, mystics, and creatives who enrich our lives. Hey, everybody, and welcome back. If you're just joining me today, it's a very interesting topic. We're talking UFOs. I have Joanne Fawcett as my guest, and her last husband worked for the military and had firsthand knowledge of working with aliens and from other planets, from our government. And like I said, I don't know. Anything is possible, right? I'm not going to close my mind off to it. I had a thought, though, when I was during the break. Do you think that maybe somebody set your ex-husband up because he may have too much? He may have too much information. So it's, you know what I'm saying? So it's easy. Well, he's in prison, so nobody's going to believe this guy, right? Kind of thing.
Yes. Well, and part of it was. What do I want to say? He's a lone wolf or a lone ranger, and he did tend to piss people off along the way.
Okay. Yeah.
So, if you're in the habit of fighting the elite and New World Order people who are trying to control everything, and they happen to be involved with this UFO stuff as well, when you make them mad, they can make you go away, or,
Sure.
I think he's too important to just have killed off, even though I'm sure they've tried many times. But so to put him in prison, they thought, well, that's, if we can get him out of the way, then he can't really be fighting us or, stopping us from doing what we're going to do. So I definitely, and not everybody believes this, but I definitely believe that they either used this crime as they used this crime as an excuse or as a way to get him out of their hair. And it's worked very well. He's been in prison almost 40 years. So.
Oh, wow. That is a long time.
Yeah.
Oh, my God.
Yeah.
So, all right. So let's go back to the UFOs. So you were talking about that one species that the government works with, and that we have treaties. And basically the treaty is they give us technology. We allow them to take.
Well, it depends.
They kidnap humans.
And it's not always like that, because the conference in 1961, it was many different facets of that conference. One part was there's going to be no open communication between civilians and aliens, so that's why we don't see them showing up for tea yet. Parts of it was like, do we sell them our spaceships, our used spaceships for them to use? How far can we allow them to go out into space? Can we continue kidnapping humans? Can we let them weaponize space? Will we let them defend space? They're not real. I mean, the humans leaders know where a lot of the aliens live. The aliens don't necessarily like that because, number one,
you mean the aliens that are here on Earth live?
The aliens out in space don't necessarily want us pointing our telescope and saying, look, they live right there, or type of thing. Because we make a mess of things. Look at the planet. We've made a mess of our own poor planet. And there's so much trash out in space, literally. They really don't want us going out there. And there's vast resources out there. So, they're already mining asteroids and moons and rings and stuff. They don't want us horning in on their territory and their commerce. So that's just one little thing. But so the treaties have to do with different things. But, I know many side treaties also, because often, here's the major treaty, but maybe there's side treaties between that government and a specific alien species. Might be about technology and kidnapping, quotas and stuff. So it just depends, because different species have often worked with different governments. It's just depending on who's going to make the best deal. And like what I've said before is, like, on the dark side is, if you look at where major terrorism has happened, or if certain wars have happened, like Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, there's been a lot of UFO activity there. And so often the military has to go in and, under the disguise of a war, is because you're really covering up dealing with alien stuff.
So, okay, so are the aliens something that are benevolent and something to be feared and dangerous, or are they? So there's both. So there's the groups that are dangerous, and then there's groups that are not and want to help us. Because I have had other people talk about who channel, like they channel, you know, the aliens, the Venusians, and the groups who are not dark, they're light, and they want to help us. And they want our Earth to. And they're not giving us a lot of the technology to help clean up our planet and save our planet because they're afraid we're going to weaponize it. So they don't feel we're mature enough as a species to handle it. So they're like kind of watching over us and waiting for us to, you know, become more enlightened as a group. Yes. You know, so have you heard that too in your alien experience?
Yes.
Okay.
And what I can say is, like, you know, when I'm talking about technology, something as simple as like computers and cell phones.
Yeah.
I'm sure we get a lot of that from aliens. But I also, you know, I don't channel directly myself, but I work with a channeling medium. So I'm either talking to dead people that I want to talk about, or I'm talking to alien species that want to come through and give me messages. So, like, for example, a couple of talks I've given, especially the last one that I gave in person just a few weeks ago, it's like, there are many species, the friendly ones, they want us to be part of, you know, they're calling it the galactic community.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
And, but number one, we need to remember that we are so much younger as a species than all of them. And we have a lot of stepping up to do, and we need to, like, raise our frequency or vibration, whatever you want to call it. It's like we have some growing up to do, or some, you know, learning to do, so that we're more on our level, because there are many of them that want to communicate with us and interact with us, and many of them, like, want disclosure. Some of them just want to have commerce with us, you know, and sell stuff to us, so that would be cool. And there's some that are, you know, scientists and who like to come explore here, and there are so many friendly species that I know about. I keep joking, but it's not a joke. I would love to sit down and have tea with a bunch of my alien friends and really discuss what their families are like and what their societies are like. Because the raptors, for example, they are dinosaurs. They look like dinosaurs. They came from this planet, but they colonized space, so they have a vast empire in space. But, you know, they have a strong family sense, and they have lots of kids. But they have a strong family values, and they believe in education and art and culture. And, yes, they're run by an empress, but they have a government system. And, you know, they have a vast military as well. So it's not like they just, you know, run around and say, we're not going to attack anybody.
Yeah.
But, I mean, but they, you know, want to help, and they don't do anything to environmentally hurt this planet. If they need to, like, manufacture something, they'll do it off the planet. But, you know, they have bases here on the Earth. They're all underground. There are a few species that originated here on this planet, and then there are some species in the oceans and things that originated on the planet. There are other species in the oceans that came from other places but really liked it, so they stayed. So, you know, there's obviously more, and people tend to lump the term reptilians, you know, as if all reptilians are the same, but there's many kinds of reptilians. There are some friendly ones, there are some not friendly ones. The biggest group that I know that is, like, working with terrorists and, you know, I shouldn't say enemy governments, because, you know, but maybe governments that aren't on the same page as we are for certain things, you know, they might work with them.
Interesting. What other, so I've heard of before the Greys. Many people have said they've seen the Greys. I don't really.
The Greys. So,
okay. So have you said you've seen an extraterrestrial?
No.
Oh, you haven't seen one.
I've seen UFOs.
You've seen a UFO.
I totally believe in the treaties where civilians and aliens are not supposed to have open communication in person. So it's like, okay, I'll wait. You know, but I still want to have tea. I want a big piece of property with a place for them to land, and we can all just sit and have tea.
And where have you seen UFOs? Where you live, so, like just in your?
Not here in Oregon, but when I was in California. Well, I've seen them in England when I've been there. And there was this one that was like the stars were coming out, and then this star. We thought it was a star at first. You know, like kind of when it zoomed right and then zoomed down. I go, oh, that's not a star.
Right,
and
yeah.
then, like, one day I was driving from my home in the San Francisco Bay Area to the prison that the ex was at the time, like a couple hours away, so I had to leave early in the morning. And I'm driving on this 2-lane highway, and all of a sudden this bright light disappears and comes back and disappears. And it's like, so I get to the prison and I go, oh, I think your friends were saying hello to me. You know, they're spaceships because they could have the ability to make it appear and not, you know, cloak it. And so that was cool. And then one of the times when he and I had, like, they call them family visits, so you're 2 days in an apartment together, and it was 9:30 at night. This is my favorite one. At 9:30 at night, he had to go to the outer gate to get counted by the guards. There's, you know, you're in an apartment, but there's a little patio, so, you know, right by the patio, there's the outer gate, and the guards come. Okay. So then I'm sitting there watching TV, and he's going to come outside right above our apartment, because Travis Air Force Base is pretty close to that prison where he's at now. And this triangular craft flew very slowly over our apartment, like 1,000, 2,000 feet above us. So I could see it plain as day, red lights, whoof, whoof, whoof. I could hear the sound of it. And then it loops back around and did it again. So I got to see it twice. And it was my 65th birthday then. It's like, this is the best birthday present ever.
Oh, wow, that's wild.
So that was, and I've seen other times, you know, I was at it with a group, and some of them were using night vision goggles. And I'm going, oh, look at that shooting star. But it was the slowest shooting star I'd ever seen in my life. And, you know, he said, oh, yeah, those are my friends just showing off, you know, because it's like sometimes you could just tell, you know, and I've got feelings about things. You know,
so you said,
like,
was this your ex-husband who said those are just my friends showing up? So
Yeah,
do you think that there's
be.
like, okay, so that's what I'm saying. So you think because of his experience that they know where he is and can show themselves to him? That's so crazy.
I think
because
he communicates with them on some level.
Wow.
It could just be telepathy or whatever, but yes, he still maintains a relationship with them.
So everybody who has a relationship with them, it's almost like on a telepathic level, like they can say,
it depends. I mean, you know, he used to be around them in person all the time. But,
like on the base, like just because I'm trying to get a picture. I'm trying to get a picture and paint a picture. So here you are, or he is on a military base. You know, there's Jack over there who you have coffee with in the morning, who's human. And then like you go to another part of the military base, and then there's like these aliens there, and they're like, hey, you know, like,
and I'm not
you know what I'm
that.
saying?
It sounds so crazy. That is what happened. I'm not saying that's happened while he's in prison because I don't know.
Right.
I'm just saying that's what his life was. And you'd go to a mission. Sometimes you'd be on a space mission, and he's been trained to work with their military as well. So sometimes he might be on their spacecraft. Sometimes some of them would be on our spacecraft.
So then our technology then is much more advanced than us lay people realize. Because if we can, you know, from some of the things that I've watched and some of the things that I've heard, you know, they always say, well, their technology is so much more advanced because of the way they can move through space and time so easily, and how we're so limited, but maybe we're not as limited as we're led to believe. I don't know, you know, because it's all hidden.
I still don't think we're probably as advanced as them. But,
right.
And you have to realize, like, I don't want to say not all aliens are equal. They don't all have the same abilities. You know, some of them have the ability to transport their vehicles through wormholes and black holes and wormholes and stuff, but not everybody can. Some of them have to drive the spacecraft through the Oort cloud and the asteroid belt and all that, so it takes them much longer to get here. It just depends, and I don't have, you know, like the Raptors, for example, can use wormhole technology. Not everybody can.
What are some of the other types of aliens, if you can think of offhand?
Well, there are some really lovely cats. I know of 2 species of cats.
Cats?
Cats, like kitty cats.
Really? That is really interesting.
There's cats and dogs and insects and reptilians. There's a really cool cat species that looks like a panther, and they'll walk up on 2 legs. So if you're wearing a cloak, you can't necessarily tell it's a cat because you can't see their tail, but they're really cool. But they're scientists and like they're anthropologists and archaeologists, and they'll come to this planet often to see. There's one in particular I know about, and she would come here to explore and see maybe where her species has visited Earth before. And if you go different places, like
that's a new one.
Tepe, yeah. Yeah.
Go ahead.
There are places on this planet like Göbekli Tepe in Turkey, which is an old temple, but it was also a spaceport. So if you look carefully at the carvings, this one has like a dog, or this one has a lizard, this one might have a cat, because different species would land their craft there. But anyway, the other cat species, and I don't know where those cats are from, but there's another cat species, their world is out in space, and it just sits still, and other things move past it. And so they live in their home world is like inside some big sphere, and they are like 7 or 9 feet tall. And when they outstretch their arms, they're like wings. They can fly. They communicate telepathically. They have this interesting, I don't know what you call it. It almost looks like a mustache, but it's really more telepathic, and they hum, and they can do a mind meld thing like Dr. Spock used to do.
And wait, now he told you this, or he told you this?
Okay. He met them. Yes, he met them. And some of them have come back to Earth with him. And so those are the 2 cat species that I know about. I'm sure there are more. There's a lovely dog species that they look like hound dogs, and they were allowed to build a base in Australia after the 1961 conference I met. And they've been visiting this planet for thousands of years, but they're very peaceful, and they can defend themselves. Pretty much most of the species I know about can defend themselves, but that doesn't mean they're outwardly mean and aggressive. But you need to be able to defend yourselves. But their sole purpose for being here, they're merchants. So they'll buy chocolate and bling and watches and fabrics and things and export them out to space to the other aliens. They won't kidnap people, and they won't transport kidnapped humans, but they'll transport all this other cool stuff that the aliens seem to want. So, that's really cool.
That is really cool. It's wild. So is it now? What is it? So then, what is an elemental? Are those would those be considered elementals?
The elementals.
The fairies. Okay.
Around. But
that's what I thought. But then I'm thinking, since I never heard of cat or dog planets, that's their alien species. But I mean, like I said, why not?
The elementals. What I love, and see, this is part of my newer talk is all about connection and connection between. I'm no longer just his spokesperson. I'm my own spokesperson. Right, of course. I'm the alien. It's like I'm moving beyond that. Because certain, there's fairies and different elemental species that live here on the Earth. And there are other alien species that have their own elementals. So you might be on the moon, and there's elementals. You might be a species from who knows where, and you'll come, you have your elementals with you. And if you're at a conference, for example, we don't speak the same language, but our elementals can translate for us. If you can't talk to me telepathically, our elementals will, talk to each other, and then they'll they'll translate for us. So, and that is so cool to me. And again, and I love that your whole thing is about creating magic or using magic in your life and rewriting your life, because that's what I've totally done these last 20, 25 years or so.
Yeah, it sounds like it.
Rewriting my life, and I love it because I'm in a fabulous place right now. But magic and witchcraft, there are many species that have their own witches in their society.
I believe that, and I know
it's not just a human thing.
And I believe in elementals wholeheartedly, because I've had some personal experiences, some sightings myself, a couple of times. So I know, and I know people I don't usually talk about it with most people, but I'm very open on my show. You can think I'm crazy or not. I know what I saw.
No. Well, and I'm not even joking. It's like, I'm getting back out in the dating world, kind of. I mean, I'm dipping my toes in. Okay. And it's like, I am so not afraid now. It's like, I'm just going to tell you I'm a witch. I'm just going to tell you I believe in all this stuff. If you don't like it, then move on, because this is who I am. And this is what I'm speaking on. half of my podcast shows that I'm getting on are about relationships, and the other half is all this stuff. And it's like, I like talking about both equally. And I felt so empowered to give my talk a couple weeks ago at this little conference. And, I just love talking about the connection, because once I got it, it's like, oh, yeah.
Well, you can hear how excited you are about it. So it comes across very, that you really are liking, and you're exploring, and you're obviously investigating more and more information as it comes out. I'm sure you're gathering that. So the talk that you gave a few weeks ago, was it mostly on aliens, extraterrestrials, and UFOs, or?
Well, it was called the Mystical Minds Convention. So there was, magic-y stuff. There was UFO speakers. There was all kinds, all the woo, UFO, paranormal, and witchy magic stuff. And again, I gave a talk on, it was called like aliens, non-humans, because I don't just like to call them aliens. They're non-humans, spirit and magic, or fairies and magic, because I really have embrace this concept that we are all connected. And, there's some very spiritual aliens here and out there. And again, like I said, some of my spirit guides, I have a spirit guide who's a raptor sorceress. I know.
And comes to you? And she comes to you. Do you see her, or do you just get messages? So you get messages from her.
I've had a message or two from her through my channeling medium, but also one of my times that I spoke in England years ago, I was giving my talk, and I have a quote that is like from this raptor senator, and it's very, it's like how everything is unique and individual and lovely and universal, and there's so much abundance in the universe, even though we all look different and stuff, and just how beautiful everything is, and infinite and connected. And when I gave that, I could already feel like my father-in-law spirit and these fairy or angelic beings behind me, but she was like to my right shoulder, and it came through so hot. It was like, oh my gosh. And then some psychics came up after the talk and said, oh, I saw what was behind you. I go, good, because I could feel it.
You could feel it. Yeah, that's wild.
So beautiful. So I love that. I just love that, because I like I said, I want to sit down and have tea and just talk about it, because I'm supposed to be a teacher for certain alien species, and so I want to get that show on the road.
You want to have, I don't blame you. Well, you're open and you're ready. I watched recently, I don't know what it was on. I don't know if it was on Netflix or, I watched something, I think it may have been on Netflix, about these children that actually the whole class saw a UFO and actually saw a alien standing there, and it was all over the news when it first came out. And then what started to happen was they started to try to change. Now they're adults, right? So it's going back, and a lot of them, like one guy, changed his story. Like they tried to change the story, because at first everybody was open to it, and then I guess it got to be too real, because you had 20 kids who all witnessed the same thing. And then they said, oh, they made it up and they lied, and it was out of Australia or something. It was really wild. I watched this whole thing about it, and I was like, oh, that's so interesting. And they didn't want people to, they don't want people to know.
There's a prolific author who writes about different sightings all over the place, and his name is Preston Dennett. He's from California, but one of his more recent books was all about children as witnesses to UFOs and alien stuff. And I don't know if it was necessarily as many actual alien sightings, definitely UFOs, and especially happening at a lot of schools and stuff. So it's that's just what you just said. So that's really cool.
Yeah, well, apparently what was so unique about this particular story, it wasn't just the UFO. There was an alien. There was something, someone came out of the craft, and they were a witness to it. And that's not usually what happens. Like, people will have sightings of UFOs, but they don't necessarily see, you know, an alien creature. So yeah, it was really interesting to watch it. Yeah. So I mean, I definitely know that we're not the only species on this, you know, in space over here. So, it's been so fun talking to you about it. We only have like a minute. Is there anything you want to share that you didn't get a chance to mention before we wrap up?
Not necessarily. Just, you know, I encourage everybody to have an open mind, and you know, you take what I say and do your own research and see what's in your heart and how it sits with you.
Yeah.
You know, and just have an open mind, because there's friends out there that want to be our friends.
Is there any, like, somebody that you follow or watch that talks a lot about real life sightings that people who are interested in this, that could go to?
There's so many people out there in the UFO industry, so there's no one person that I follow in particular, because I'm usually too busy to watch all the other stuff.
Sounds like it. Well, thank you, Joanne. It was a delight having you. It was a lot of fun.
Oh, you're a delight.
Oh, thanks. All right, guys. Thank you so much for listening to Postcards to the Universe with Melissa, Creating Life You Crave. And I'm wishing everyone a wonderful week filled with joy, abundance, and love. Peace.
Thank you.